Let me tell you something powerful, something we don't hear enough. Good people don't suffer because they are weak. They suffer because they are brave enough to stay soft in a world that constantly tries to harden them. If you're someone who gives more than you receive, who feels deeply, who believes in loyalty, kindness, and truth, this world will test you again and again. Not because you deserve pain, but because you refuse to live small. You refuse to live numb. And that takes courage. Good people often suffer because they expect honesty in a dishonest world. They love without calculation. They trust without armor. They show up even when it costs them. And yes, sometimes that means disappointment. Sometimes it means heartbreak. Sometimes it means standing alone. But listen carefully, that does not make you foolish. It makes you rare. The truth is, pain is often the companion of purpose. When you are meant for something bigger, life doesn't hand it to you gently. It shapes you, it stretches you, it breaks you open so the light can get in. Every tear you've cried, every night you questioned your worth, none of it was wasted. It was building depth, resilience, and wisdom that cannot be taught any other way. Good people suffer because they care, and caring is risky. It means you feel rejection more sharply, you feel loss more deeply, you feel injustice more personally. But it also means you experience joy more fully, love more intensely, and meaning more profoundly than those who shut their hearts down. There will be moments when you're tempted to change, to become colder, tougher, less kind. Don't. The world doesn't need another hardened soul. It needs people who can go through fire and still choose compassion. Strength is not becoming cruel. Strength is staying kind without becoming naive. Your pain is not your identity, but it is part of your evolution. You are not meant to stay broken. You are meant to rise informed, awake, and unshakable. The suffering you've endured is teaching you boundaries. It's teaching you self-respect. It's teaching you that being good doesn't mean being available to be mistreated. One day, you look back and realize the pain refined you. It gave you a voice. It gave you clarity. It gave you the power to say no, the wisdom to walk away, and the confidence to choose yourself without guilt. So if you are hurting right now, hear this. You are not weak for feeling. You are not wrong for caring. And you are not failing because you're tired. You are becoming. Stay good, but be strong. Stay kind, but be wise. Let your pain shape you, not silence you. Because the world doesn't break good people, it reveals them. Pain is not a punishment, even though it often feels that way when you're in the middle of it. When you are a good person, when you live with integrity, empathy, and a genuine heart, suffering can feel deeply unfair. You ask yourself why doing the right thing seems to hurt more, why kindness is repaid with silence, betrayal, or loss. But the truth is this: pain is not a verdict on your worth, it is a reflection of your depth. You suffer not because you are wrong, but because you are real in a world that often rewards indifference. Good people feel pain more intensely because they are present in their lives. They don't skim the surface of emotions, they dive into them. They love without filters. They hope without guarantees, and they give without keeping score. That openness makes them vulnerable, and vulnerability always carries risk. But that risk is also where courage lives. Choosing to stay open, even after disappointment, is one of the bravest things a human being can do. Pain often shows up when your values are higher than the environment around you. When you refuse to lie, manipulate, or shrink yourself, friction is inevitable. Life pushes back, not to punish you, but to strengthen you. Just like pressure turns carbon into a diamond, emotional pressure refines your character. It teaches you discernment. It shows you where to place your energy and where to withdraw it. It shapes your inner backbone. If pain were truly a punishment, it would destroy you completely. But it doesn't. Somehow, even after the hardest moments, you are still here. You still care. You still hope. That's evidence that pain is doing something else. It is stretching your capacity, expanding your emotional intelligence, and preparing you for a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more grounded. Pain also slows you down long enough to listen to yourself. It forces you to confront truths you might otherwise ignore. It asks you to grow boundaries, not walls. To love yourself with the same loyalty you give to others. To understand that being good does not mean accepting everything, and being kind does not mean abandoning yourself. So when pain enters your life, don't immediately assume you've done something wrong. Sometimes it arrives because you are doing something right. You are living honestly. You are choosing depth over convenience. And that kind of life, while challenging, is the one that ultimately builds meaning, strength, and quiet, unshakable power. Good people suffer because they feel deeply, and feeling deeply is both a gift and a challenge. When you are the kind of person who sees the world with clarity, who empathizes with others, and who loves without hesitation, the emotional currents of life hit you harder than they hit others. You don't just experience events on the surface, you absorb them, you process them, and you carry them within yourself. Every disappointment, betrayal, or loss echoes longer in your heart, not because you are weak, but because your heart is wide and your conscience is alive. This depth of feeling is what makes life rich and meaningful, but it also means suffering comes in sharper, more vivid ways. One reason good people suffer is that they live by principles in a world that often does not. When you are honest, generous, and loyal, there will always be people who take advantage of that. There will always be situations that seem unjust, unfair, or unkind. And when these moments occur, it can feel personal, as if life itself is conspiring against you. But the truth is that your suffering is rarely a reflection of your mistakes. Often, it is a reflection of your integrity. You are standing in your truth while others around you may not, and that alone can create friction, tension, and heartache. It is the price of remaining authentic. Suffering also teaches lessons that cannot be learned in any other way. When life challenges you, it forces you to grow resilience, patience, and self-awareness. Every setback becomes an opportunity to understand yourself better, to redefine your boundaries, and to recognize who truly values you. Good people suffer not because they deserve pain, but because they are being prepared for something greater. The struggles shape the person you are becoming, carving strength and wisdom into your character. Pain is the teacher that reveals your capacity to endure, adapt, and ultimately transform. Another reason good people suffer is because they care. They care about others, about justice, about truth, and about love. And caring is risky. It means opening your heart to experiences that may bring disappointment or grief. It means being affected by the world in ways that many try to avoid. But this caring is also what makes life beautiful. It allows joy, connection, and fulfillment to be experienced more intensely. The intensity of suffering is proportional to the depth of love and empathy a person holds. Ultimately, good people suffer because they are alive in the fullest sense. They refuse to numb themselves to protect their hearts, and in doing so, they experience life with richness and clarity. The suffering is real, but so is the growth, the strength, and the wisdom it brings. Those who endure with a good heart emerge not broken, but refined, capable of compassion, courage, and an unshakable understanding of what truly matters in life. Struggle is not the end of your story, it is the training ground for your strength. Every challenge, every obstacle, every moment of pain that a good person faces is not meant to defeat them, it is meant to prepare them. Life does not hand out lessons gently, especially to those who care deeply and act with integrity. The path of a good person is rarely smooth because their heart and their mind are tuned to truth, compassion, and authenticity. And the world often tests these qualities because they are rare and because the world itself is imperfect and unpredictable. Struggle shapes resilience in ways comfort never could, and it teaches lessons that remain long after the pain fades. Good people suffer because they refuse to compromise their values. They refuse to take shortcuts that would make life easier or safer. They choose honesty over convenience, kindness over selfishness, and love over indifference. And living this way comes with consequences. They face disappointments that others might avoid. They encounter betrayals that others might never experience, and they bear burdens that those less conscientious may never notice. Yet these challenges are not punishments, they are opportunities to build inner strength, patience, and perspective. Each trial tests the limits of endurance and encourages personal growth that can never be taught in books or classrooms. Pain also acts as a mirror, reflecting both our vulnerabilities and our potential. It exposes the areas where we are fragile, allowing us to strengthen them. It forces us to confront fears and insecurities we might otherwise ignore. For a good person, this confrontation is not easy because their natural tendency is to protect others and keep the peace. But suffering demands attention. It asks for reflection, action, and adaptation. The lessons learned through struggle transform character, deepen empathy, and sharpen judgment. Over time, what once felt unbearable becomes a source of wisdom and clarity. Another reason good people suffer is because they invest fully in the lives of others. They give without reservation, they love without calculation, and they hope without guarantees. That willingness to be open exposes them to disappointment and heartbreak, but it also allows them to experience joy, connection, and fulfillment more intensely. The depth of suffering is proportional to the depth of care, and that intensity is what makes life meaningful. Those who endure these struggles without losing their compassion develop a unique power, the ability to rise above hardship while remaining authentic and humane. Ultimately, struggle does not define a good person, it refines them. Each hardship, each trial, each moment of suffering builds endurance, insight, and courage. Good people are not weakened by adversity, they are strengthened. Life's challenges shape them into individuals capable of facing the world with integrity, kindness, and unwavering resolve. Suffering, when embraced with awareness, becomes a teacher, a guide, and a forge that transforms pain into purpose and trials into triumph. Choosing compassion in a harsh world is not a weakness, it is one of the most courageous acts a person can perform. Good people often suffer because they continue to care, to give, and to love, even when the world seems indifferent or cruel. They face disappointment, betrayal, and injustice, not because they ask for it, but because their hearts remain open. In a world that sometimes rewards selfishness and cynicism, choosing to stay soft and empathetic requires inner strength that few possess. This is why the suffering of good people is not a sign of failure, but a reflection of their extraordinary capacity to feel, understand, and respond with kindness in situations where others might harden their hearts. Compassion demands vulnerability, and vulnerability always carries risk. When you allow yourself to be fully present with others, to listen deeply, and to help without expecting anything in return, you expose yourself to loss and disappointment. Yet, this exposure is what creates connection, intimacy, and authentic relationships. The very qualities that leave a good person open to pain are the qualities that allow them to experience profound love, deep friendship, and meaningful purpose. It is the paradox of life that those who feel the most deeply also risk suffering the most, but they also experience life with the greatest richness. Suffering also teaches discernment. When a good person faces hardship, it forces them to evaluate where to place their energy and whom to trust. Pain is a guide, showing them which relationships are reciprocal, which situations are worth their effort, and which boundaries are necessary for self-preservation. The compassionate person learns to balance generosity with wisdom, kindness with strength, and empathy with discernment. In doing so, they develop a maturity and resilience that protects their heart without dulling it. Moreover, suffering refines purpose. The challenges a good person faces often reveal their values and priorities more clearly. They learn which struggles are meaningful and which battles are unnecessary. Pain becomes a teacher, shaping not only character but also life direction. Those who endure with an open heart discover that their suffering has a greater purpose. It equips them to help others, to inspire resilience, and to bring hope to those who feel lost or broken. Ultimately, choosing compassion in a harsh world is a deliberate act of courage. Good people suffer because they refuse to abandon their humanity, even when it would be easier to turn away. Their pain is not a mark of weakness, it is proof of their strength. They endure, they learn, and they continue to shine their light in a world that sometimes prefers darkness. In embracing their suffering without losing their compassion, they transform pain into power, vulnerability into courage, and adversity into a deeper understanding of what it means to live fully and authentically. Your pain can become purpose when you rise instead of harden, and this is where the greatest transformation occurs. Good people suffer not because they are weak, but because they feel more deeply, care more passionately, and refuse to numb themselves to life's challenges. Every experience of loss, heartbreak, disappointment, or betrayal can either break you or shape you, depending on how you respond. Those who allow suffering to harden their hearts may protect themselves temporarily, but they also limit their growth, their empathy, and their capacity for joy. Rising through pain, however, transforms it into a teacher, a guide, and ultimately a source of purpose that can illuminate not only your own path, but the paths of others. When you face adversity, the natural instinct may be to retreat, to protect yourself, or to question why life is unfair. But choosing to rise instead of hardening is an act of courage that requires awareness, patience, and resilience. It means acknowledging your suffering, feeling it fully, and then using it as fuel for growth. Every challenge you endure contains lessons about your limits, your values, and your strength. By facing pain head-on, you gain clarity about what truly matters in life, and you learn to distinguish between what is worth your energy and what is not. Your suffering becomes a roadmap pointing you toward purpose, meaning, and a deeper understanding of yourself. Pain also builds empathy. Those who endure hardship without losing their goodness develop the ability to connect with others in profound ways. They understand suffering not as a distant concept but as a lived experience. And this understanding allows them to offer support, encouragement, and compassion to those who are struggling. The lessons learned from personal pain become a powerful resource for helping others navigate their own challenges. Your experiences, when embraced, become more than personal trials. They become tools for transformation, not just for yourself, but for the people you touch. Moreover, rising through pain strengthens resilience. Life will inevitably present setbacks, disappointments, and moments of loss. Those who have faced suffering and chosen growth over bitterness are better equipped to navigate future challenges. They learn to respond with patience, courage, and wisdom, and they develop an inner strength that cannot be taken away. Pain no longer feels like an enemy, but like a companion guiding you toward purpose. Ultimately, your suffering is not wasted. Every tear, every moment of doubt, every struggle has the potential to shape you into a person of deeper insight, compassion, and strength. When you rise instead of hardening, pain becomes your teacher, your motivator, and the catalyst for a meaningful life. It transforms weakness into courage, heartbreak into empathy, and adversity into purpose, showing that the trials of good people are not in vain. They are the foundation for a life fully lived, authentic.